Good afternoon. We're super glad you're with us on this episode of Bridgecast. Today we have Dr. Colette Cummings with us, the Associate Dean of Students at Webster University, and we are so lucky and so happy to have her with us. But before we go into that interview, we're going to do a couple of business things first. First off, I want to make sure to hit on the newsletter. So we got a couple of email responses after we sent out our newsletter last week or last Friday, saying that sometimes it gets sent in the wrong mailbox. So if you are normally on our newsletter email list and you have not received our newsletter, please make sure you check all of your different mailboxes. For some reason this week, Gmail has decided to list us either as a social or otherwise. But I promise that everything we embed in there is completely safe and there's not going to be any issues with the links that we click on. We work directly through Canva. Joe, do you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yes, I looked into that because I'm usually the one that send those emails out. What I've come to conclude is that through the Google algorithms that Gmail has, because we send out the consistent email to the same consistent group of people in the same format that just is a small thing of text and usually with a PDF attached, it takes that kind of in as a promotional type email, and so it might pop up. If you have a Gmail, it has like the social and then the networking kind of inbox that it automatically configures things into. We're still not sure why some people received an alert that it might be a potentially dangerous email this past week. We can assure you, again, like Josh said, all the attachments are safe, and we're looking into how to prevent that in the future, so stay along with us, and until then, keep reading the newsletters. Our team puts a lot of hard work into them.
Yes.
And they're totally not going to give you a virus, all of that good stuff. You're good.
And we had a guest writer in our newsletter, this most recent one, Kieran, who is one of our exchange team members for 2021, is a phenomenal writer and currently writes for the Webster Journal with Webster University. And one of their articles that they did for the journal also was put inside of our newsletter for Bridge Builders. So that's one you don't want to miss, and hopefully we'll get more articles from Kieran in the future because they are an amazing writer. We have a raffle. Bree Black, who was our guest last week, has been communicating with us and sent us three different pieces of art. Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit on this, Joe?
Yeah, so these are, I can bring them closer to the camera because I'm sure you can't see them from here. So these are the earrings that we are raffling off this week. She had them up on the screen last week, but now they have come successfully through the mail. And then we also have this set that we'll be raffling off. Oh, this earring fell off. It's a 2 earring and then a bracelet set, hand beaded. And then also this beautiful necklace. It has little white flowers and little pink ones. It's very wonderful, long necklace, dainty and all of that. I feel like what's the one person from Wheel of Fortune?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, I don't know what her name is. I feel like that ages me in the opposite way. So these are the ones from this week that we have. And she also sent some super cool Sioux YMCA stickers for us to give each person that gets the art, which directly supports the artists from the reservation. Completely, it's the most fair trade that you can get. And it supports the Sioux Y because the purchase is through them. And you support Bridge Builders through the raffle. So you can't go wrong.
Yes.
Do you want to see who the winner is for the earrings for this week?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So again, these are the wonderful blue earrings. Kyle Frazier made these from the reservation. Thank you all who participated in the raffle this week. The lucky winner of these earrings will be decided now. Let me shake it up. Josh will choose.
And the winner is Jackie Krikis. And thank you for participating. Thank you for all those who donated and were inside of the raffle. And we will have more raffles in the future. Like we said in the past, we'll be doing them every other week. So we're not going to do a raffle this week, but next week we will have our next raffle for it.
We'll post all about that. So congratulations, Jackie. Thank you guys again. And we will have those earrings and the sticker either in the mail or at your doorstep very soon.
Great. Let's go on to the real important stuff.
The fun part here.
with Dr. Cummings. Colette, would you be willing to give us a little bit of intro and talk a little bit about your work at Webster University?
Of course. So you can just call me Colette. You don't have to call me doctor. My mother did not name me doctor. So I just go by Colette. So my official title is Associate Dean of Students and director of the Multicultural Center and International Student Affairs. So there's really two components to my job. I will speak first about the Associate Dean of Students part, because that's what I've been working on a lot lately. So as the Associate Dean, I work with all students, and I serve on the Dean of Students senior staff, and we do everything. So right now we're trying to figure out how to get students back on campus after being gone for COVID. So I'm working every single day. So I was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. And then as I'm also the director of the Multicultural Center and International Student Affairs, and in that sense, we work with all students, but primarily domestic students and international students. So we do everything from advising student groups to working with our international students as they arrive into the United States and as they, matriculate through the university. We also do a lot of diversity and inclusion programming. So we are all trainers. We all do a lot of training. So that's some of the things that I do. And I just left a virtual farewell because one of my colleagues, one of my staff members, Bethany Keller, is leaving us on the 20th of this month. Mm-hmm. So I've been, in the process of finding a new person to, fill that position. I'm not going to say take her place because Bethany is irreplaceable, and you both know her. So you know that she's irreplaceable. So we're not replacing Bethany. We're just finding somebody to fill that position. So those are the things that I do.
That's wonderful. We want to thank you so much, especially while you're trying to work through all of that and running the department and running everything else. So thank you so much for committing your time to us. We were particularly interested, we're hoping a cat doesn't jump up here. There's cats everywhere we go now. We were particularly interested in talking about an exercise that you facilitated that I actually got to participate in my housing and res life training through Webster. You facilitated this program that you call the Meeting Your Friends program, and we would love to kind of share and dive into what that means and what your thought process is behind that program and during it. So can you just, for everyone else that hasn't had the pleasure of being in this program, kind of explain what it is and what your thought process was in developing it?
No problem. So I developed that years ago, but I've updated it, and my team has updated it over the years. So it's just a scenario where it's very simple. If we were not virtual, we would do it we just put poster boards around the room with different descriptors on it. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples of the things that were in your training. So some of the people who were in your session, if I remember correctly, we had a steel mill worker living in rural America, mm-hmm. who was an avid Trump supporter. Yep. We had hopefully I get those right. We had somebody who was I think it was a Jewish student who was very, I can't remember the descriptor. We had an All-American athlete, recently paralyzed from the waist down. I think it was the neck down. We had, I'm just trying to think of some of my friends. We had I don't think this person was in your group, but so this is one that rotates. We had somebody who was a very outspoken bisexual student leader on campus. And then we also had an African American male student who was recently, we had a recently parole convicted murderer. Yeah. So I have some interesting friends.
Yes, you have a variety of friends.
Yes, I have a variety of friends, and the friends change based on the group I'm working with.
Yes.
And our thought process behind this whole activity is because what we tend to see is the outward expression of people when we first meet them. And so literally what I typically say to all the students, so let me go back. Let me back. So what I ask people to do in this little activity is to look at the people on the wall and then identify the person, the descriptor that you most identify with. And all I want you to do is go stand next to that piece of newsprint. And then when you go stand there, I ask you to talk about I ask you to choose the person that you most want to be, to spend all of your, suspend reality, and you are now living in my reality. And so you no longer have your own identity. You are going to assume the identity of one of my friends. And so I ask you to choose the person that you most want to be and just go stand next to that person. And once you get there, then if you're standing with a group of people, I ask you to have a conversation about why you chose that as the person that you most wanted to be. That's it. It's simple, right? Yeah. It's a very simple activity. So once people have this conversation, we go around the room and ask people to, talk about why they made that choice. And then I say something like, you're a very intelligent group. And if that was all of there was to this activity, it would be too easy. And we just don't do easy. So then I ask you to look back around the room, and then I ask you to choose the person that you would least like to be. Like, I couldn't give you all the money in the world. I couldn't do anything to make you choose that identity. So then I ask you to, once again, go back around the room and pick the person that you least want to be. But I always give the caveat that might be the person that you most wanted to be. You can be standing in the center.
Yeah.
And so students repeat that activity, and then we have a conversation about that. And then in the end, I always ask students to look back around the room and ask them what they noticed. Well, first we have a conversation about, what was this activity like for you? What did you think about, what was a harder choice, choosing the person you most wanted to be or the person you least wanted to be? And then I ask them, once we have that conversation, I say, okay, so look back around the room. What do you know about any of my friends? And people say, they're all sad. No, some students say, I would never want to be any of these people. They all have really hard circumstances, and I'm just grateful for where I am. And I was like, okay, what else do you know? And I say, look at this. There are no more than 16 words on any piece of paper. And they were like, oh, really? And I was like, so then I asked him, did you create lives for these people? Did you fill in the blanks? You only have 16 words to make a decision, to use to make a decision. So how did you create lives for these people? How did you do that?
Right.
And then we have a deeper conversation about how we fill in the blanks for people, how we just make assumptions about people's lives. And I always give them the example. They were like, these people have such difficult lives. And I always give them the example. One of my people on the wall usually is a homeless, recovering, drug addicted parent living in a car with 2 small children. And I always remind them that I saw that person walk across the stage and get her degree. And people are like, what? And I was like, yes, these people are not like people that I just make up, right? In my spare time. These are actually people I know and I have relationships with. That's why I can, use them as an example. And then I finally say, if I was to condense your life into 16 words, you don't get the choice of what 16 words I choose. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you be the person that somebody would choose as the person that they most wanted to be or least wanted to be?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the activity.
I think it's so rich, Colette, in community building styles, and I know your different educational theories that you work with at Webster University and how important it is. What would you say, like broad going out, theory-wise in your educational theories, what would you say is an important learning objective you're trying to convey through this program?
I think the biggest thing, 2 things. 1, don't make assumptions. And 2, instead of telling people stories, ask people what their stories are, because they're so much richer than you could ever imagine. So people have very different stories, and everybody has the right, we want to hear all the stories. that everybody has a different story, and all the stories are rich and complex, and people are not one thing. People are, a compilation of things, all of their experiences.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's I think it can connect very well with bridge builders in that way. For our viewers that are listening to this right now, what are some things that you would encourage us to do in our individual lives, both within our workplaces, our education, and within our personal lives, that we can sort of engage with the learning objectives of your program better?
I think just asking people, just having the patience to ask people who they are, simple questions like, when we first meet somebody, the typical question we ask them is, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
No, start asking, reframe that and say, just tell me who you are. Just tell me, who, in essence, tell me what you like, tell me what you enjoy, tell me the things that make you happy, tell me the things that make you sad, tell me your story. You can just simply, just tell me your story.
Right.
Yeah.
If you say something like that, it's open-ended, and it gives the person you're talking to the opportunity to tell you more than just, oh, what do I do for a living? Because we're all so much more than what we do to make a living.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's such an important aspect of community building. That I think one of the things I'm really proud of Webster University for, and I know you have a huge hand in this, is community building being done right in a lot of ways. And I think that programs like yours definitely have a contribution to that. So thank you.
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
welcome.
Let's talk a little bit about place-based learning. I know that me and you have sat in on a couple of meetings together just to discuss this topic a little bit. And so looking at bridge builders, looking at some of the programs me and you have worked on together, Colette, and then also this idea of place, how do you see its importance in the work that you do at Webster University?
I think place-based learning has a huge impact because, people attach so much to a place. For students, we attach so much to being in the space that we're in. I think of all the students who, because we're living in the age of COVID, where everybody had to pretty much leave the place where they were and go to a different place. Right now, I'm sitting at my dining room table. So this is a very different place than I'm used to working every day. So, for me, I equated home with sanctuary, that this is my sanctuary, and now it's my workplace. And so I'm just going to be honest. There are some days I'm like, oh, this is not the space. I have to physically say to myself, my dining room is my office. And when I turn that light off in my dining room, my house becomes my sanctuary again. But it's difficult because most people, associate a place with a feeling or an emotion or something that we do or something that we're connected to. So we try to do that. And so some of our programming around places or place-based learning, and we did something in the fall. We did a St. Louis tour, and we focused on immigration in St. Louis and how we focused on migration and immigration and how people migrated through, how people came to St. Louis and how they migrated through the systems in St. Louis. So we took students from the mounds downtown, the former burial grounds, all the way to what's the name? I'm sorry. So we took students to Forest Park, and then we went all the way, not quite to Belleville. Yeah, so we took students all over. One place that we stopped at was Soulard, and people were like, why is Soulard so important? Because Soulard is a place that has a lot of meaning for a lot of people, especially if you're from St. Louis. So we've done that. We have also taken students on trips to different places. So this past year, we also took students to Memphis. But when we went to Memphis, we only focused on the music scene in Memphis, and we focused on the blues. And so that was all about a place, and the place was Memphis, but it was also about the music of Memphis. So we went to Beale Street, we did a lot of things, but the whole focus was on the music of Memphis. So, most people connect, well, actually it was the blues. And so we connected the place, Memphis, with, a theme, which is was music, and specifically the blues, and how that impacted that city. So we've done things like that.
I think it's fascinating stuff. Josephine, do you have the next question?
I mean, if you just wanted to talk any more about what work you're doing right now, are there any topics on your heart that you feel are important to discuss, even beyond just your MCISA work, or if it's your MCISA work that you want to talk about, anything like that, because you are an individual who does many a social justice project. So we just wanted to give you kind of an open platform to talk
so
about.
I'm going to talk about one thing. Actually, I'm going to talk about two things. One is something that I do outside of Webster that I've been that I was working on for a year, and that's something I was doing with Josh. So in my spare time, my leadership this year has been working in the United Methodist Church, because I'm the United Methodist, and we, Josh and I, have been going to meetings since July?
Yeah.
So, because we're both delegates to our general conference or jurisdictional conference. So in the United Methodist Church, it's a global church, and so we do a lot of things that are not just Missouri based, but it's all over the world. So we are, one of our jobs this year was to interview bishop candidates to serve in the United Methodist Church next year. So I had a great experience working with Josh, interviewing bishop candidates for a week in Oklahoma City. It was very intense because we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what questions we were going to ask, and a lot of times figuring out the dynamics of that. So it was it's been an amazing journey. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then I think the other thing I really want to mention is just about COVID and how the world is changing. I just finished, and I just turned my grades in yesterday, teaching a group of freshmen and sophomore students in the School of Business. And one day, I just said, okay, we're just going to have a conversation about how are you doing living in this brand new world? And a lot of my students said, I just can't wait for it to get back to normal. So I gave them this example. I was like, okay, so let me give you a little wisdom. I grew up in a time when you could go to the airport and see the planes take off. You could actually go to a gate and watch your friends come in, or you could walk them to the gate and say goodbye. And I was like, but for my students, I said to my students, you didn't grow up in that time. You grew up in a time where you have always taken off your shoes. You actually, all of you grew up after 9/11. So you have never gone to the airport when you dressed up to go for a flight. When you just sailed through the airport. When you've only grown up in a time where you've had to take off your shoes and basically undress before you can get through security. And my students were like, oh. I said, so things we will have a new normal. So the standard of normal that we had before this is going to change. And my students said, oh, that's a good explanation. I was like, yeah. so you were like, oh, it's going to get back to normal. I was like, yeah, normal is relative. So
normal is relative.
Is relative.
So we just have to think about how we're gonna, function in this new normal. I'm gonna call it I'm gonna call it our new reality.
Wow.
There you go.
It's not normal, but our new reality.
Well, Colette, I think if you were able to join us at the very end, if you're viewing now and joining us, I want to make sure you all get the tagline. Normal is a relative term. So I think pulling from the conversation, that's definitely something that is huge. But again, something that is normal for me and has stayed consistent is always talking with you, Colette, is hugely beneficial, and also so much wisdom comes from you every time that we speak. So again, thank you so much for coming to talk with us.
Yes.
and answer our questions. We really appreciate it.
You are both welcome. So hopefully we can do this again. And you know what? Talk to me offline, because I might be able to give get a few things from our office to, use for the next raffle.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, Colette.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate that.
No problem. You both know how to get in touch with me.
Yes.
Of course.
Thank you for joining us. To our viewers, we want to make sure that we continue to stay in community and continue to build empathetic, intentional community in the best ways that we can. So continue to stay connected with us, newsletters, look on our website, engage with our raffles, pay attention to our Bridgecasts. They're happening every single week. Next week, we're having another faculty member from Webster University, Dr. Kate Parsons from the Philosophy Department, and the head of the Women, Gender, and Sexualities Department is coming to speak with us. And that is another one you will not want to miss. So thank you again to Colette for speaking with us, and thank you to all of our viewers out there. Have a wonderful day.
See you next week.